You absolute scoundrel! You despicable wretch! The words erupted from Valentina Rosewood's lips like volcanic fire as she stood dripping wet in the middle of Fifth Avenue, her vintage dress now a canvas of muddy water and wounded pride. The sleek silver Lamborghini had just splashed through the largest puddle in Manhattan, transforming her from hopeful job applicant to walking disaster in mere seconds. Behind the wheel sat Sebastian Blackthorne, heir to the Blackthorne empire, a 28-year-old man whose bank account held more zeros than most people's phone numbers. His perfectly sculpted jaw dropped as he witnessed the aftermath of his careless driving. The woman before him wasn't just angry. She was magnificently furious, her emerald eyes blazing with an intensity that made his heart skip in ways his cardiologist would find concerning. "I'm so sorry, Sebastian began, stepping out of his car in his $1,000 Italian suit. But Valentina cut him off with a gesture that would make a traffic cop proud. "Don't you dare apologize, you pompous peacock. Do you have any idea what you've done?" She gestured to her ruined outfit, which moments ago had been her lucky interview dress, the one piece of clothing that made her feel confident enough to apply for a position at Blackthorne Industries. Sebastian found himself mesmerized by this woman who dared to call him names no one had used since his boarding school days. In his world of yes men and social climbers, encountering someone who treated him like a regular human being, albeit an infuriating one, was refreshingly shocking. "Please, let me make this right," he insisted, pulling out his wallet with the practiced ease of someone accustomed to solving problems with money. "I can pay for dry cleaning, or better yet, let me buy you a new dress." Valentina's laugh could have frozen champagne. "A new dress? Do you think money solves everything, you overprivileged disaster?" She snatched the business card from his extended hand, not to accept his offer, but to read his name. Her face went from flushed anger to pale recognition in milliseconds. "Sebastian Blackthorne," she whispered, then her voice rose to a pitch that attracted curious pedestrians. "The Sebastian Blackthorne? The same Sebastian Blackthorne whose company I was supposed to interview with in exactly..." She checked her phone. 15 minutes? The irony hit Sebastian like a champagne cork to the forehead. This magnificent, furious woman was Valentina Rosewood, the candidate whose resume had somehow ended up on his desk despite his father's strict hiring policies. Her credentials were impressive: business degree from a state school, paid for with 3 part-time jobs, volunteer work at local charities, and recommendation letters that painted her as someone with more heart than his entire social circle combined. "You're Valentina Rosewood," he said, recognition dawning like sunrise over the Hamptons. "Was," she corrected, wringing muddy water from her hair. "I was Valentina Rosewood, promising job candidate. Now I'm Valentina Rosewood, human puddle, thanks to your reckless driving, you magnificent menace." Despite her anger, Sebastian caught the hint of vulnerability in her voice. This job clearly meant everything to her, and he'd just destroyed her chances with the subtlety of a wrecking ball at a tea party. "The interview," he said softly. "You can't go like this." "Brilliant deduction, Mr. Holmes," Valentina replied, her sarcasm sharp enough to cut diamonds. "I suppose I'll just explain to your father's hiring committee that his son turned me into a walking disaster. I'm sure that'll go over wonderfully." An idea struck Sebastian with the force of a romantic comedy plot twist. "What if you didn't have to explain anything to the hiring committee?" Valentina raised an eyebrow that could have won Olympic medals for skepticism. "What if," Sebastian continued, his voice taking on the confident tone that had closed billion-dollar deals, "instead of going to that interview, you let me prove that not all Blackthorns are heartless monsters? Give me 1 day to make this right, and I'll guarantee you not just an interview but the job itself." "And why would you do that?" Valentina asked, though something in his earnest expression made her heart flutter like butterfly wings in a hurricane. Sebastian looked at this woman who'd called him more creative names in 5 minutes than his business rivals had in 5 years, who stood there dripping and defiant and absolutely captivating, and realized he was about to say something that would either be the smartest or stupidest thing he'd ever uttered. "Because," he said, extending his hand like a prince in a fairy, Dale, I have a feeling you're about to change my life, and I'd like the chance to change yours. You must be completely mad, Valentina declared, staring at Sebastian's outstretched hand as if it were a snake offering apple slices. Absolutely. Certifiably insane. Do you honestly think I'd trust a man who drives like he's auditioning for a demolition derby? Sebastian's hand remained steady, his smile growing wider with each insult. In his 28 years of privileged existence, no one had ever spoken to him with such delicious honesty. Board members cowered, socialites simpered, and business rivals calculated every word. But this extraordinary woman with mud in her hair and fire in her eyes treated him like he was just human. I prefer charmingly eccentric, he replied, his voice carrying the warmth of expensive whiskey. And I promise my walking is significantly better than my driving. Scout's honor. You were never a scout, Valentina shot back, though she found herself fighting a smile. You were probably raised by a team of British nannies and Swiss tutors. Close, German nannies and French tutors, Sebastian admitted with a laugh that could have melted glaciers. But I did learn honor from someone very important, my grandmother. She always said that a true gentleman's character is measured by how he treats people when he has nothing to gain. Valentina's resolve wavered, like a candle in a hurricane. There was something in his voice when he mentioned his grandmother, a softness that suggested depths beneath his designer surface. Against every instinct screaming at her to walk away, she found herself curious about this contradiction of a man. One day, she said finally, her voice firm as courthouse marble, one day to prove you're not just another entitled rich boy with more money than morals. But I have conditions, you beautiful disaster. Sebastian's heart performed acrobatics that would impress Cirque du Soleil. Name them. First, no throwing money at problems. I want to see who Sebastian Blackthorne really is, not what his credit card can buy. Valentina counted on her fingers like a prosecutor building a case. Second, we do things my way. No fancy restaurants, no helicopter rides, no showing off. And third, she stepped closer, close enough that he could smell her perfume mixing with the scent of rain. If this is some elaborate game to you, some rich boy's entertainment, I will make your life more complicated than a tax audit. Sebastian felt something shift inside his chest, like tectonic plates rearranging to accommodate an earthquake of emotion. Deal, he said without hesitation. But I have a condition too. Valentina raised that magnificent eyebrow again. You're hardly in a position to negotiate, puddle-maker. Call me Sebastian, not Mr. Blackthorne. For today I'm not the heir to anything. I'm just a guy who wants to spend time with the most fascinating woman he's ever met. The sincerity in his voice caught Valentina off guard. She'd expected smooth talking, practiced charm, the kind of polished manipulation wealthy men wielded like expensive cologne. Instead, she heard something that sounded suspiciously like honesty. Fine, she said, surprising herself by taking his hand. The contact sent electricity through both of them as if they'd grabbed the same lightning bolt. But first, I need to call my father and explain why I'm not coming home with a job today. Sebastian watched as Valentina pulled out a phone that had clearly seen better decades. The contrast between her battered device and his latest smartphone felt like a metaphor for the distance between their worlds. Papa, she said in Portuguese, her voice immediately softer, more vulnerable. Sebastian found himself enchanted by this glimpse of her private self. Sim, the interview. No consegui. Her voice caught slightly. Something came up. I'll explain later. Te amo. When she hung up, Sebastian saw the weight she carried. The responsibility, the pressure, the fear of disappointing someone who mattered more than anything. He's sick, isn't he? Sebastian asked gently. Your father. Valentina's eyes widened. How did you... The way you said I love you. Like you were afraid it might be the last time. Sebastian's voice was surprisingly gentle. My grandmother taught me to recognize that tone. She used it with my grandfather during his final months. For a moment, Valentina's armor cracked, revealing the scared daughter beneath the fierce facade. Heart condition. The medical bills. She shook her head, rebuilding her walls. That's not your problem. Maybe not, Sebastian said. But it's yours, and today your problems are mine to help solve. That's what friends do. Friends? Valentina laughed, but there was less edge to it now. We've known each other for exactly 12 minutes, and most of that time I've been insulting you. Best 12 minutes of my life, Sebastian replied with devastating honesty. And technically you've been insulting me creatively. There's a difference. Despite everything, her ruined dress, her missed interview, her uncertain future, Valentina found herself genuinely smiling for the first time in weeks. All right, Sebastian, show me this mysterious real you. But I warn you, I'm an excellent judge of character, and I don't impress easily. Sebastian felt like he was standing at the edge of a cliff, about to jump into something that would either save him or destroy him completely. Lucky for me, he said, offering her his arm with old-fashioned courtesy. I've always been good at rising to challenges. As they walked away from the scene of their collision, neither noticed the photographer across the street capturing their moment, or the black sedan that had been following Sebastian all morning. In the Blackthorn world, every move was watched, every relationship scrutinized, every emotion weaponized. But for now, in this bubble of possibility, there was just a man and a woman taking the first steps of a journey that would change both their lives forever. This is your idea of showing me the real you? Valentina stared in disbelief at the subway entrance Sebastian was approaching with the confidence of a man who'd never encountered public transportation. You magnificent fool, you don't even know how to buy a MetroCard, do you? Sebastian paused at the turnstile like a deer caught in headlights at a ballet recital. The machine beeped angrily at him as he waved his black American Express card, near various surfaces, clearly expecting it to work like magic. Several New Yorkers pushed past him with the patience of saints having particularly bad days. How hard can it be? He muttered, then louder to Valentina. It's just a small train, right? Like a horizontal elevator? Valentina's laughter echoed through the subway station like music in a cathedral. Oh, you poor sheltered prince. Here, let me introduce you to how the other 99% lives. She expertly navigated the card machine, purchased 2 tickets, and guided him through the turnstile with the efficiency of a woman who'd been riding the subway since she could walk. The downtown 6 train arrived with all the subtle grace of a metal dragon having digestive issues. As the doors opened, Sebastian watched in horror as people pushed and shoved with the enthusiasm of Black Friday shoppers. Sweet mother of pearl, he whispered. Is this normal? Shouldn't there be some sort of system, some order? Welcome to rush hour democracy, Valentina grinned, grabbing his hand and pulling him into the car. Every person for themselves, survival of the fastest. Sebastian found himself pressed against Valentina in a way that would have been scandalous at a charity gala, but felt surprisingly natural in their current circumstances. Her hair smelled like vanilla and rain, and despite the chaos around them, he felt oddly peaceful. Where exactly are we going? He asked, speaking directly into her ear to be heard over the train's mechanical symphony. To meet the most important person in my world, Valentina replied, her voice carrying a mix of pride and nervousness. My father. If you're going to understand who I really am, you need to meet the man who raised me to never accept anything I haven't earned. Sebastian's stomach performed gymnastics that would have impressed Olympic judges. Meeting parents was territory he'd never explored. His own romantic history consisted of women who were more interested in his last name than his first name. Relationships that never progressed beyond surface-level attraction and mutual social benefit. The train lurched to a stop in Queens, and Valentina led him through a neighborhood that looked like it had been painted by an artist who believed in the beauty of everyday life. Children played in fire hydrant water. Elderly men played dominoes on card tables, and the air carried the scent of a dozen different cultures cooking dinner. This is where I grew up, Valentina said softly, her voice carrying the warm pride of someone showing off their most treasured possession. Every window tells a story. Every corner holds a memory. Sebastian looked around with the wide eyes of an explorer discovering a new continent. In his world, neighborhoods were planned by committees and maintained by staff. Here, life happened organically, messily, beautifully. They stopped in front of a small apartment building that had seen better decades but still stood with dignified determination. Valentina pulled out a keyring that could have unlocked half of Manhattan. "Papa," she called as they climbed to the third floor, "I brought someone to meet you." The door opened to reveal a man in his 60s with kind eyes and hands that spoke of a lifetime of honest work. Eduardo Rosewood was thin but not frail, weathered but not broken. When he saw his daughter, his face lit up like sunrise over the Atlantic. "Minha filha," he said warmly, then noticed Sebastian and switched to accented English. "And who is this young man who has captured my daughter's attention?" "Papa, this is Sebastian," Valentina said, carefully omitting his last name. "Sebastian, meet my father, Eduardo Rosewood, the wisest man I know." Sebastian stepped forward, and surprising everyone including himself, offered a respectful handshake instead of his usual confident business grip. "Mr. Rosewood, it's an honor to meet you. Valentina has told me wonderful things." Eduardo's handshake was firm despite his slight frame, and his eyes assessed Sebastian with the sharp intelligence of a man who'd learned to read people's character quickly. "Any friend of Valentina's is welcome in our home. Please come in." The apartment was small but filled with warmth that no amount of money could buy. Family photos covered every surface, each one telling the story of a father and daughter who'd built a world together through love and determination. Sebastian noticed there were no pictures of Valentina's mother, and the careful way Eduardo moved suggested his heart condition was more serious than Valentina had let on. "You're hungry?" Eduardo asked, already moving toward the kitchen with the automatic hospitality of someone who'd raised a daughter to never let guests leave unfed. "Valentina, help me make some café con leche." As father and daughter bustled in the tiny kitchen, Sebastian found himself studying their interaction with fascination. They moved around each other with practiced ease, communicating as much through glances and gestures as words. The love between them was palpable, uncomplicated, and completely foreign to Sebastian's experience with family. "So, Sebastian," Eduardo said, returning with a tray of coffee and homemade cookies that smelled like heaven had opened a bakery. "What do you do for work?" Sebastian nearly choked on his coffee. He'd never been asked such a simple question that felt so complicated to answer. In his world, everyone knew who he was before he walked into a room. "I work in business," he said carefully, catching Valentina's approving nod at his discretion. "Import and export mostly." Eduardo nodded thoughtfully. "Honest work is good work. My Valentina, she's going to change the world, you know. She has the heart of her mother and the determination of me when I was young and foolish enough to think I could conquer anything." Sebastian watched Valentina's face soften as she looked at her father, and he understood something profound about love. It wasn't about what you could buy or provide, but about who you chose to become for the people who mattered most. "I can see that," Sebastian said quietly. "She's already started changing mine." "You backstabbing viper, you treacherous snake." The voice of Maximilian Blackthorne Sr. thundered through Sebastian's phone like an opera singer having a particularly dramatic death scene. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Sebastian nearly dropped his coffee cup as his father's call shattered the peaceful morning he'd been spending at Valentina's kitchen table, helping Eduardo with a crossword puzzle. The contrast between the warmth of the Rosewood apartment and the ice in his father's voice felt like being slapped with a frozen fish. "Father, I can explain," Sebastian began, but Maximilian cut him off with the precision of a corporate guillotine. "Explain? Explain? The entire board is in chaos. The stock price dropped 3 points, and all because my heir apparent has been photographed gallivanting around Queens with some nobody." The volume of his voice could have powered a small city. "Get to my office immediately, you foolish boy." Sebastian's blood turned to Arctic water. He looked at Valentina, who was pretending to read a book, but clearly listening to every word, and Eduardo, who was studying his son's face with the sharp eyes of a man who'd seen trouble approaching from miles away. "I'll be there in an hour," Sebastian said quietly, ending the call with the finality of closing a coffin lid. Problems at work? Eduardo asked with the gentle concern of someone who understood that sometimes the people we love carry burdens too heavy to share. Something like that, Sebastian replied, his voice hollow as an empty vault. He looked at Valentina, who was now watching him with an expression that mixed worry with something that looked dangerously like disappointment. I have to go. There's a situation that requires my immediate attention. Valentina set down her book with deliberate care. Let me guess, your father found out about yesterday's adventure and now you're in trouble with the family business? Sebastian's silence was answer enough. I see, she continued, her voice acquiring the sharp edge of broken crystal. So, this is where the fairy tale ends, isn't it? Where the prince remembers he has responsibilities to his kingdom and the peasant girl gets sent back to her hovel? It's not like that, Sebastian protested, but even as he said it, he knew how it looked. How it always looked when his two worlds collided. Isn't it? Valentina stood up, her movement sharp with contained energy. You know what the truly pathetic part is? For about 12 hours, I actually believed you might be different. I thought maybe, just maybe, there was a real person underneath all that privilege. Eduardo cleared his throat softly. Valentina, perhaps we should… No, Papa. Her voice was firm but respectful. Mr. Sebastian has somewhere very important to be. Somewhere more important than here. The words hit Sebastian like physical blows. In 24 hours, this woman had become the most important thing in his life, and now he was watching her slip away because he couldn't figure out how to bridge the gap between who he was and who he wanted to be. 45 minutes later, Sebastian stood in his father's office like a defendant awaiting sentencing. The elder Blackthorn sat behind his mahogany desk, a piece of furniture that cost more than most people's cars, studying photographs spread across its surface, like evidence in a criminal trial. Care to explain these? Maximilian's voice could have flashed frozen champagne. The photos showed Sebastian and Valentina holding hands, laughing on the subway, walking through Queens like two people falling in love. She's nobody dangerous, father. Just a girl I met. Nobody dangerous? Maximilian's laugh could have curdled milk at 50 paces. Son, the most dangerous people in the world are the ones who make us forget who we are. This girl, this Valentina. Rosewood, she's making you soft, making you forget your responsibilities. Sebastian felt something snap inside his chest, like a wire under too much tension. Her name is Valentina, and she's not making me forget anything. If anything, she's helping me remember what actually matters. What matters? Maximilian rose from his chair with the dramatic flair of a judge delivering a death sentence. Is the Blackthorn legacy. What matters is the empire I've built for you to inherit. What matters is maintaining our position in society, not slumming it in Queens with some gold-digging nobody. She's not a gold digger. Sebastian's voice erupted with volcanic force. She doesn't even know who I really am. She likes me for me, not for what I can buy her or what my name can do for her career. Maximilian's smile was sharp enough to perform surgery. Oh, my naive son. They all know who you are. This little performance, this innocent act, it's all calculated. Trust me, I've seen it 1,000 times. He slid a folder across the desk with the practiced ease of a man delivering bad news. Miss Valentina Rosewood, unemployed, father, dying of heart disease, medical bills mounting, desperate for employment. She applied to work at our company, didn't she? And then, what a coincidence, she meets you the very day of her interview. Sebastian's world tilted on its axis, like a ship in a hurricane. The folder contained everything. Valentina's employment, application, her father's medical records somehow obtained through private investigators, even photographs of their modest apartment. You had her investigated, Sebastian whispered, the words tasting like ashes. I protect what's mine, Maximilian replied with the cold satisfaction of a chess master announcing checkmate. This girl saw an opportunity and took it. She's playing a game you're too inexperienced to recognize. Sebastian stared at the documents, his mind reeling. Was it possible? Had Valentina known who he was all along? Had her anger, her insults, her apparent disinterest all been an elaborate performance? Even if that were true, Sebastian said slowly, which it's not, it wouldn't change how I feel about her. Maximilian's expression shifted from satisfaction to concern. Sebastian, listen to me very carefully. You will end this association immediately. You will focus on your responsibilities to this company and this family. And you will marry Helena Ashworth as we've always planned. Helena Ashworth? Sebastian felt like he'd been punched by a boxer made of ice. The senator's daughter? Father? I barely know her. You'll get to know her. The engagement announcement goes out next week. It's already been arranged. Sebastian looked at his father, really looked at him, and saw a man who'd built an empire but lost his soul somewhere, in the foundation. And if I refuse? Maximilian's smile could have frozen hell itself. Then you'll lose everything. Your inheritance, your position in the company, your access to the family fortune. You'll be cut off completely, left to survive on whatever skills you think you possess outside of being a blackthorn. The ultimatum hung in the air between them like a sword waiting to fall. Sebastian realized he was standing at the crossroads of his entire life, forced to choose between the world he'd always known and a love that had changed him in ways he was only beginning to understand. You colossal idiot. You absolute buffoon. Valentina's voice could have shattered crystal as she hurled the newspaper across her living room, the engagement announcement photo of Sebastian and Helena Ashworth fluttering to the floor like wounded birds. I knew it. I knew you were too good to be true, you magnificent liar. Eduardo looked up from his morning medication with the weary expression of a man who'd seen his daughter's heart break once too often. The newspaper headline screamed, "Blackthorn. Hair announces engagement to senator's daughter," in letters large enough to be read from space. "Minha filha," he said gently. "Perhaps there's an explanation." An explanation? Valentina's laugh could have powered a small hurricane. "Oh, there's an explanation, Papa. I was the entertainment between his real-life commitments. The poor girl who made him feel good about himself before he went back to his golden cage." She stared at the photo of Sebastian in his perfect tuxedo, standing next to Helena Ashworth, a woman who looked like she'd been carved from marble by Renaissance masters and dressed by angels with unlimited budgets. They looked perfect together, two beautiful people from the same glittering world, smiling the practiced smiles of people born to be photographed. "He never told me his real name," Valentina whispered, the fight suddenly draining out of her. Sebastian Blackthorn. The Sebastian Blackthorn. The heir to the biggest fortune in the city. And I called him a pompous peacock. Eduardo moved to his daughter's side with the careful steps of someone whose heart beat on borrowed time. "And what did he call you?" "What do you mean?" "When he looked at you, Mina Filia, what did he see? A poor girl from Queens or something? More?" Valentina thought back to the way Sebastian had looked at her, like she was the most fascinating person he'd ever met, like her words mattered, like her presence made his world brighter. But that was before she knew who he really was, before she understood the impossible distance between their worlds. Meanwhile, across the city in the Blackthorn penthouse, Sebastian stood at his floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at the Manhattan skyline without seeing any of it. The engagement party was in full swing behind him, 200 of New York's elite celebrating a union that felt like a funeral to him. "Darling, you look positively brooding." Helena Ashworth appeared at his side like a beautiful ghost, her voice carrying the cultured tones of someone who'd been educated at the finest schools money could buy. "It's our engagement party. You should at least pretend to be happy." Sebastian turned to study his fiancée. Helena was undeniably beautiful, impeccably bred and perfectly suitable. She was also about as warm as a marble statue and twice as lifeless. Everything about her screamed appropriate choice and whispered soul-crushing boredom. "Helena," he said quietly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, darling." "Are you happy about this engagement?" Helena's laugh tinkled like expensive crystal. "Happy? Darling, happiness is for people who don't understand the importance of strategic alliances. We're both getting what we need. You get a wife who understands your world, and I get access to the Blackthorn fortune and influence." "And love?" Sebastian asked. What about love? Helena looked at him with the patience of a teacher explaining simple mathematics to a slow student. Love is a luxury we can't afford. Love makes people do foolish things like chase after inappropriate girls from inappropriate backgrounds. Sebastian's blood turned to ice. What do you know about inappropriate girls? Oh, darling, everyone knows about your little adventure in Queens. The photos are quite charming, really. You looked so common. Helena's smile could have been painted on with surgical precision. But don't worry, I understand. Men need their little rebellions before they settle down to serious business. Sebastian stared at this woman who would become his wife, who spoke about his feelings for Valentina like they were a childhood phase he'd outgrown, and realized he was looking at his future, a life of strategic alliances, calculated emotions, and the slow death of everything that made him feel alive. "Excuse me," he said, turning away from Helena with the abruptness of a man who just realized he was drowning. He found his father holding court near the bar, regaling a group of business associates with stories of corporate conquest. Maximilian caught sight of his son and raised his glass in a toast that felt more like a victory celebration. "There's my boy, the future of the Blackthorn dynasty." Sebastian approached with the grim determination of a man walking to his own execution. "Father, I need to speak with you privately." Maximilian's expression shifted from jovial to concerned in milliseconds. "Gentlemen, if you'll excuse us." They stepped onto the private balcony, the sounds of the party muffled by glass doors that cost more than most people's annual salaries. "What's troubling you, son? Pre-wedding jitters?" "Perfectly normal." Sebastian looked out at the city lights, somewhere among which Valentina was probably cursing, his name and his lineage. "I can't do this, Father." "Can't do what?" "Marry Helena. Live this life. Pretend that money and status matter more than—" Sebastian's voice caught. "More than finding someone who sees you for who you really are." Maximilian's face hardened like concrete setting. "Sebastian, we've been through this. That girl was using you." "No." Sebastian's voice erupted with the force of a dam breaking. "You want to know what Valentina was using me for? She was using me to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was still something good in the world. She was using me to remember what it felt like to laugh, to feel alive, to matter to someone for reasons that had nothing to do with my bank account. She knew who you were," Maximilian insisted. The investigation proved that you're so paranoid about gold diggers that you can't recognize genuine feeling when it's staring you in the face." Sebastian's words came out like bullets. "She never asked me for anything, Father. Not money, not favors, not access to anything. She just wanted me to be real." Maximilian's expression softened slightly, but his voice remained firm. "Son, I understand this feels important now, but in 5 years, 10 years, you'll thank me for protecting you from making a mistake that would have destroyed everything we've built." Sebastian looked at his father and saw a man who'd built an empire but had forgotten how to build a life. "What if I don't want everything you've built? What if I want something different?" "Then you'll have nothing," Maximilian replied with the finality of a judge sentencing a criminal. "Is she worth losing everything for?" Sebastian closed his eyes and saw Valentina's face, angry, passionate, alive with an energy that made everything else seem pale by comparison. He thought about her father's gentle wisdom, their tiny apartment filled with more love than this penthouse had ever known, and the way she'd looked at him like he was just Sebastian, not the Blackthorn heir. "Yes," he said quietly, "she's worth everything." "You magnificent lunatic, you beautiful disaster." Valentina's voice echoed through the hospital corridor as she ran toward the cardiac unit, her heart hammering against her ribs like a caged bird desperate for freedom. The call had come at dawn. Her father had collapsed, and the doctors weren't sure he'd make it through the morning. She burst through the waiting room doors and stopped dead in her tracks. There, sitting beside Eduardo's hospital bed, holding her father's hand, was Sebastian Blackthorn, no longer the polished heir in designer suits, but a man in wrinkled clothes who looked like he hadn't slept in days. "What are you doing here?" she whispered, her voice caught between fury and something that felt dangerously like hope. Sebastian looked up with eyes red from exhaustion and worry. "Your father called me. Apparently I'm listed as his emergency contact under the boy who makes my daughter smile." Eduardo's weak voice drifted from the hospital bed. "Minha filha, don't be angry with him. He's been here all night, making sure I had the best doctors, the best care." "I don't understand." Valentina's voice cracked like thin ice. "The engagement party, Helena Ashworth, your perfect life. Shouldn't you be planning your wedding to your marble princess?" Sebastian stood slowly, his movement careful as if he were approaching a wild animal that might bolt at any sudden gesture. "There isn't going to be a wedding. I walked away from everything, the engagement, the company, the inheritance, all of it." Valentina's world tilted sideways. "You did what?" "I chose love over legacy," Sebastian said simply. "I chose truth over tradition. I chose you, even if you never choose me back." "But why?" The question escaped her lips like a prayer. "You barely know me. We spent one day together, and half of that time I was insulting you with creative profanity." Sebastian's smile could have powered the entire hospital. "Because in one day, you showed me what 28 years of privilege couldn't teach me. What it means to be real. You saw through every wall I'd built, every mask I'd worn, and you still thought I was worth knowing." Eduardo's voice interrupted their moment with the gentle authority of a man who'd spent a lifetime understanding human nature. "Valentina, this man paid for my surgery. Not because he had to, not because someone asked him to, but because he loves you and knew your heart would break if something happened to me." Valentina's knees nearly buckled. "The surgery? Papa, that procedure cost more than we make in 5 years. And now it's paid for," Sebastian said quietly. "Along with all the follow-up care, physical therapy, medications, everything he needs to get back to arguing with you about your career choices." Tears rolled down Valentina's cheeks like pearls scattered by a broken necklace. "Why would you do that? You don't even know us." "Because." Sebastian stepped closer, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "I'd rather be broken in love than rich and empty. I'd rather argue with you for the rest of my life than agree with anyone else. I'd rather be Sebastian Nobody who makes you laugh than Sebastian Blackthorne who makes you cry." Valentina stared at this man who'd given up everything for love, who'd chosen her world over his own, who'd paid for her father's life without asking for anything in return. "You realize you're completely insane, don't you? You beautiful, magnificent, impossible fool." "Completely," Sebastian agreed. "Certifiably, utterly, and I've never been happier in my entire life." Eduardo's laughter from the hospital bed sounded stronger than it had in months. "Minha filha, I think you should kiss this crazy man before he changes his mind." "I'm not changing my mind," Sebastian said, never taking his eyes off Valentina. "Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Even if you tell me to leave right now, even if you never want to see me again, I'll still love you. I'll still choose you. I'll still be grateful that for one perfect day, I got to see the world through your eyes." Valentina looked at Sebastian, really looked at him. Gone was the polished air with the perfect hair and designer clothes. In his place stood a man with rumpled clothes, tired eyes, and a heart bigger than his former bank account. He'd given up everything that defined him in the eyes of the world, and somehow become more himself than he'd ever been. "You know," she said, taking a step closer, "I called you a lot of names when we first met." "You did," Sebastian agreed. "Some of them were quite creative, but I never called you the one thing you actually are." "What's that?" Valentina reached up and cupped his face in her hands, her voice soft as silk and strong as steel. "Mine." Their kiss was worth every penny Sebastian had given up, every bridge he'd burned, every door he'd closed behind him. It tasted like coffee, and tears and the promise of forever. It felt like coming home after a lifetime of being lost. When they finally broke apart, Eduardo was wiping tears from his eyes. "Now that," he said with satisfaction, is how a real love story ends. Ends? Sebastian laughed, pulling Valentina closer. Mr. Rosewood, with all due respect, this is just the beginning. 6 months later, Sebastian stood in the same Queen's apartment, where he'd first understood what family meant, wearing a simple black suit that cost less than his former cufflinks. His best man was Eduardo, who'd made a full recovery and appointed himself chief wedding planner with the enthusiasm of a man who'd finally gotten the son he'd always wanted. Valentina walked toward him, wearing her grandmother's wedding dress, altered by the neighborhood seamstress with more love than any designer could provide. She looked radiant, beautiful, and completely herself, the woman who'd taught him that the best things in life couldn't be bought, only earned. "You know," she whispered as they exchanged vows in front of their friends and neighbors, "I still think you're completely crazy." "And I still think you're completely magnificent," Sebastian replied. "Looks like we're stuck with each other. Forever and always, you beautiful disaster. Forever and always, my perfect storm." As they kissed to seal their union, Sebastian realized he'd been wrong about one thing. He hadn't lost everything when he walked away from the Blackthorn. Fortune. He'd gained everything that actually mattered. A wife who loved him for who he was, a father-in-law who'd become his closest friend, a community that had welcomed him with open arms, and a life filled with the kind of richness that couldn't be measured in dollars. The fairy tale had ended exactly as it should. Not with the princess joining the prince in his castle, but with the prince discovering that the real kingdom was wherever love lived. And they lived happily, chaotically, magnificently ever after. The screeching of tires against wet asphalt pierced the afternoon air. Emma Porter's heart leaped into her throat as she lunged forward, her body moving before her mind could process what was happening. The small figure in the wheelchair had rolled dangerously close to the busy Manhattan street, teetering at the edge of the curb as a taxi swerved to avoid collision. "Oh my God!" Emma shouted, dropping her worn canvas bag of groceries. Oranges and a loaf of bread tumbled across the sidewalk as she sprinted the few yards separating her from disaster. Her hands gripped the handles of the wheelchair just as its front wheels dipped over the curb. With strength she didn't know she possessed, Emma yanked backward, pulling both chair and child to safety as the yellow taxi horn blared in angry protest. "Are you okay?" Emma gasped, kneeling to face the wide-eyed boy of about 8. His sandy blonde hair was tousled by the wind, his freckled face pale with shock. I didn't mean to," the boy stammered, tears welling in his eyes. "The brake slipped and then I started rolling." Emma's breathing steadied as she placed a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder. "Hey, it's all right. You're safe now. Where's your—" "Oliver!" A deep voice boomed from behind them. Emma turned to see a man sprinting toward them, his tall frame cutting through the crowd of onlookers like a ship through water. His tailored charcoal suit was at odds with the panic etched across his face, a face that Emma recognized from countless magazine covers and business news segments. James Blackwood, tech genius, philanthropist, billionaire entrepreneur whose security software company, Blackwood Innovations, had revolutionized digital privacy, and apparently, father to the boy Emma had just saved from becoming roadkill. "Dad, I'm okay," Oliver called out, his earlier fear transforming into sheepish embarrassment. James Blackwood dropped to his knees beside the wheelchair, hands frantically checking his son for injuries. "What happened?" I turned around for 10 seconds at the newsstand and— "This lady saved me," Oliver interrupted, pointing to Emma, who was now awkwardly collecting her scattered groceries. James looked up, truly noticing Emma for the first time. Their eyes met, his a startling shade of blue that contrasted with his dark, slightly disheveled hair. For a moment, the bustling New York sidewalk seemed to fade away. "You saved my son?" James asked, his voice softer now. Emma tucked a strand of chestnut hair behind her ear, suddenly conscious of her faded jeans and the coffee stain on her white blouse, the uniform from the diner where she worked double shifts. Anyone would have done the same. "No," James said, firmly rising to his impressive height. "They wouldn't have." He extended his hand. "James Blackwood." "I know who you are," Emma replied without thinking, then blushed. "I mean, I'm Emma Porter." As they shook hands, Emma couldn't help but notice the absence of a wedding ring. The tabloids had covered the tragic story 3 years ago, how James Blackwood's wife had died after a long battle with cancer, leaving him to raise their son alone. "Miss Porter saved my life, Dad," Oliver declared with the dramatic flair unique to children. "She's like a superhero." "I think you might be right," James agreed, his gaze lingering on Emma with undisguised appreciation. "At the very least, she deserves a proper thank you." He paused, seeming to consider something. "Would you join us for dinner tonight? My chef makes an incredible coq au vin." Emma glanced down at her groceries, a sad collection of discount items that would become her meals for the next 3 days. Her tiny apartment in Queens awaited, along with 3 unpaid bills and her roommate's cat that shed on everything she owned. "I can't. I have a shift at the diner tonight," she answered. "Honestly, tomorrow then?" James pressed with the confidence of a man unaccustomed to hearing no. Something in Oliver's hopeful expression made Emma's resolve waver. "I suppose I could do tomorrow." "Excellent." James pulled out a sleek business card and handed it to her. "My private number. Text me your address and I'll send a car at 7. Before Emma could protest that an Uber would take half her daily earnings, Oliver spoke up. "Do you like video games, Miss Porter? I've got all the cool ones, even the ones that aren't out yet because Dad tests them." "Oliver," James said with a gentle warning tone. "What?" "It's true." The boy grinned mischievously. Emma couldn't help but laugh. "I'm terrible at video games, but I'd love to learn." A black SUV pulled up to the curb, and a suited driver stepped out. "You're meeting at Hudson Yards, Mr. Blackwood." James nodded in acknowledgement before turning back to Emma. "Until tomorrow, Emma Porter." He smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his serious face. "Thank you for saving the most important person in my world." As the driver helped Oliver into the vehicle and loaded his wheelchair, James lingered for a moment longer than necessary. 7 o'clock, don't forget." Emma watched as the SUV merged into traffic, clutching the business card with its embossed gold lettering. She had just saved a child's life and agreed to have dinner with one of the richest men in America, all within 10 minutes. Her phone buzzed with a text from her roommate. "Where are the groceries? Starving." Emma looked at her half-empty bag and burst into laughter that bordered on hysteria. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you," she murmured to herself, pocketing James Blackwood's card and heading toward the subway station. Little did she know that this chance encounter on a busy Manhattan street was about to change everything. Emma stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror of her cramped Queens apartment, hardly recognizing herself. Her roommate Zoe, a theater costume assistant with an uncanny knack for transformation, had worked magic. "Hold still," Zoe commanded, applying the finishing touches to Emma's makeup. "You can't go to a billionaire's penthouse looking like you. Just finished a double shift." "But I did just finish a double shift," Emma protested weakly. Zoe stepped back to admire her handiwork. "And now you look like you stepped off a runway. The emerald green dress brings out your eyes perfectly." She adjusted the borrowed designer dress, a cast-off from one of Zoe's Broadway productions. "Thank God we're the same size." Emma's phone chimed with a text message. "The car has arrived, Ms. Porter." "Oh God, it's happening," Emma whispered, panic rising. "What am I doing? This man is on the Forbes list, Zoe, the actual Forbes list." Zoe gripped Emma's shoulders firmly. "Listen to me. You saved his kid. You're not some gold digger. You're the hero in this story. Got it? Now go enjoy some fancy food that doesn't come with a side of grabby customers and bad tips." 5 minutes later, Emma stepped outside to find not the town car she'd expected, but a gleaming Rolls-Royce Phantom with a uniformed driver holding the door open. "Ms. Porter," he nodded respectfully. "This is excessive," Emma muttered, sliding into buttery leather seats that probably cost more than her annual salary. The drive to Manhattan passed in a blur of twinkling city lights and Emma's racing thoughts. When they pulled up to one of the sleek glass towers dominating the skyline, her stomach twisted into knots. "Mr. Blackwood's private elevator is this," Way, ma'am. The concierge guided her after a discreet phone call. The elevator required a fingerprint scan which had apparently been programmed to recognize her. Emma's mind boggled at the resources James Blackwood could command with a single request. When the doors opened directly into the penthouse, Emma's jaw dropped. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the glittering Manhattan skyline like a painting. Modern art pieces that belonged in museums adorned the walls of the vast, open living space. "You came!" Oliver's excited voice preceded the whir of his motorized wheelchair. He navigated expertly across the polished concrete floors, wearing a button-down shirt and bow tie. "Dad, she's here!" James appeared from what must have been the kitchen, looking remarkably different from the business mogul she'd met yesterday. In dark jeans and a simple gray cashmere sweater with the sleeves pushed up, he appeared younger, more approachable. He carried a wooden spoon and wore an apron that read, "The chef is always right." "The chef couldn't make it," James explained, catching her surprised expression. "I hope you don't mind my cooking instead." "You cook?" Emma blurted out. James raised an eyebrow. "Disappointed?" "Surprised," she corrected. "Pleasantly." "Dad's food is mostly edible," Oliver stage whispered, earning a mock glare from his father. "Such loyalty," James lamented, gesturing for Emma to follow them. "Oliver, why don't you show Emma around while I finish dinner?" The tour was led by an enthusiastic Oliver, who showed her the media room, where Dad falls asleep during movies. The indoor greenhouse. Mom loved plants, so Dad keeps them everywhere. And finally, Oliver's bedroom, a wonderland of advanced technology and adaptive equipment that made Emma realize how thoughtfully the space had been designed for him. "I have muscular dystrophy," Oliver explained matter-of-factly when he caught her looking at his collection of braces and equipment. "It's why I'm in the chair. But Dad says I shouldn't lead with that, because I'm Oliver first, not my disability." Emma knelt to his eye level. "Your dad sounds pretty smart." "He is, but he's also super lonely," Oliver said with disarming directness. "That's why I was so excited when he invited you. He never invites anyone except boring business people." Before Emma could process this information, James called them for dinner. The dining table was set with fine china, yet maintained a casual atmosphere with tea lights floating in small crystal bowls. "This is beautiful," Emma said sincerely. "It better be. I spent an embarrassing amount of time watching YouTube tutorials on table settings," James admitted, pulling out her chair. The meal was delicious. Coq au vin with perfect mashed potatoes, fresh bread, and a wine that Emma suspected cost more than her rent. The conversation flowed surprisingly easily, with Oliver bridging any awkward moments with his precocious observations. "So what do you do besides saving children from traffic?" James asked, refilling her wine glass. "I wait tables at Rosie's Diner in Queens, but that's just to pay bills. I'm actually studying to be a physical therapist," Emma replied. 2 more semesters until I'm certified." James's interest visibly deepened. "That's an admirable field. It chose me, really. My younger brother had an accident when we were kids. The physical therapists who helped him walk again were my heroes." Emma smiled at the memory. "Now he plays college soccer." "Heroes run in the family then," James said softly. After dinner, Oliver challenged Emma to a racing game, which she predictably lost. Multiple times. "You're terrible at this," Oliver laughed, not unkindly. "Told you." Emma grinned, not minding his honesty. "Maybe you could teach me?" While Oliver patiently explained the controls, James watched them from the doorway, an unreadable expression on his face. Later, after Oliver had reluctantly gone to bed, James invited Emma onto the terrace with its breathtaking view of Central Park. "Thank you for coming tonight," he said, standing close enough that she could smell his subtle cologne. Oliver had a wonderful time. "So did I," Emma admitted. "Though I'm still confused why I'm here. You could have sent flowers or a gift basket as thanks." James turned to face her fully. "Is that what you think this was? A thank you dinner? Wasn't it?" "Initially, perhaps," he conceded. "But then I spent the entire afternoon thinking about the woman who didn't hesitate to save my son, who turned down my dinner invitation because she had to work, and who looks at Oliver and sees him, not his wheelchair. He paused. That's rare, Emma. The intensity in his gaze made her heart race. I should go. It's getting late. Of course. If he was disappointed, he hid it well. The car will take you home whenever you're ready. At the elevator, Emma gathered her courage. James? Yes? I have Sundays off. There's a small art festival in Bryant Park this weekend. Oliver might enjoy it, if you both would like to come. The smile that spread across James's face was like sunshine breaking through clouds. We'd like that very much. In the Rolls-Royce heading back to Queens, Emma's phone buzzed with a text. Thank you for one of the best evenings we've had in a very long time. Until Sunday. JB Emma leaned back against the leather seat, clutching her phone and grinning, like a teenager. The car passed the diner where she'd be working at 6 a.m. tomorrow, but for once, she didn't feel the usual dread. Sunday couldn't come fast enough. Sunday arrived with perfect spring weather, mild sunshine and a gentle breeze that carried the scent of blooming trees through Bryant Park. Emma arrived early, nervously adjusting her casual sundress and denim jacket as she waited by the entrance to the art festival. You're overthinking this, she muttered to herself. It's just a day at an art fair with a billionaire and his son. Totally normal. Her self-pep talk was interrupted by the sight of James and Oliver approaching, not in a luxury vehicle with a driver, but with James pushing Oliver's wheelchair himself. They were dressed casually, Oliver in jeans and a superhero t-shirt, James in khakis and a blue button-down with rolled sleeves. They looked like any other father and son enjoying a weekend outing, save for the discreet security detail maintaining a respectful distance behind them. Emma! Oliver called out, waving enthusiastically. James's face lit up when he spotted her, his smile genuine and warm. I was worried we'd be late. Someone couldn't decide which t-shirt to wear, he said, ruffling Oliver's hair affectionately. It's an important decision, Oliver defended. First impressions matter. That's what you always tell your business clients. Emma laughed. Well, you made an excellent choice. Iron Man is clearly superior to all other superheroes. See, Dad? Emma gets it, Oliver said triumphantly. The art festival transformed Bryant Park into a maze of white tents housing everything from oil paintings to sculptures, pottery to jewelry. As they navigated through the exhibits, Emma was surprised to discover that James had a genuine interest in art. Not as investments, but as a passion. My mother was an art teacher, he explained as they admired a series of abstract paintings. She'd take me to museums every Sunday. I had no idea what I was looking at half the time, but she taught me to feel art, rather than just see it. That's beautiful, Emma said, touched by this glimpse into his past. Did she influence your career path at all? James laughed. Quite. The opposite. Mom wanted me to be an artist. She was horrified when I chose computer science. His expression softened with nostalgia. But she came around when she saw I was creating in my own way. Grandma's paintings are all over our house, Oliver chimed in. Dad says they're worth more than anything we could buy in galleries. And he's right, Emma agreed. Family treasures are priceless. As they continued through the festival, Emma noticed how James effortlessly navigated Oliver's wheelchair through the crowds, anticipating obstacles before they became problems. She also noticed how people recognized him, the subtle double takes, the whispered comments. But James seemed oblivious, focused entirely on giving Oliver a normal day out. At a pottery booth, a gray-haired artist invited Oliver to try shaping clay on a wheel. James hesitated, concerned about accessibility, but Emma stepped forward. I've done this before, she said. With your permission, I can help Oliver position his hands. The artist set up a low table where Oliver could reach from his wheelchair. Emma knelt beside him, guiding his hands as the wet clay spun beneath their fingers. James watched them, transfixed by the scene, his son laughing as clay splattered everywhere, and Emma, equally covered in clay, encouraging Oliver with infinite patience. Look, Dad, I'm making a bowl, Oliver exclaimed proudly as the misshapen lump began to take form. "It's magnificent," James declared, snapping photos with his phone. Emma caught James's eye over Oliver's head and felt something shift between them, a moment of shared joy that transcended their different worlds. The moment was broken by a woman approaching with a professional camera. "Mr. Blackwood, what a surprise. Would you mind a quick photo for Manhattan Elite?" James's expression cooled instantly. "We're having a private family day." The photographer's gaze shifted to Emma, curiosity evident. "And your friend is also enjoying a private day?" James replied firmly. No comment, no photos. The woman retreated, but Emma noticed several people now openly staring and taking discreet pictures with their phones. "Sorry about that," James said softly. "Hazard of public places." "It's fine," Emma assured him, though she felt suddenly self-conscious about her clay-covered clothes and hands. "Should we get lunch? I'm starving." They found a quiet corner in a nearby cafe, where the manager immediately recognized James and ushered them to a secluded table. Emma watched as James helped Oliver transfer from his wheelchair to a regular chair, noting the practiced ease between father and son. Over sandwiches and fresh lemonade, Oliver regaled Emma with stories about his school and his friends, occasionally interrupted by James to prevent oversharing. Emma, in turn, shared stories about her physical therapy internship and her most memorable patients. "You'll be an amazing therapist," Oliver declared. "You know how to make hard stuff seem less scary." "That's the nicest compliment I've ever received," Emma said, genuinely touched. James checked his watch reluctantly. "We should probably head back soon. Oliver has homework and Dad has a video conference with Tokyo," Oliver finished, rolling his eyes. "Boring business stuff never stops." "The curse of being a grown-up," James agreed, tousling Oliver's hair. "But I was thinking, Emma, if you're free next Saturday, maybe you'd like to join us at the Hamptons house. The beach is quiet this time of year, and we have specialized equipment so Oliver can enjoy the water." Emma hesitated. A weekend at the Hamptons was a significant step up from an afternoon in Bryant Park. "I'd have to check my work schedule." "Please say yes," Oliver pleaded. "Dad actually relaxes at the beach house. He doesn't even bring his laptop, usually." "I'll see what I can do," Emma promised. As they walked back toward the park entrance, Emma's phone rang. Seeing it was her brother Michael, she excused herself to take the call. "Hey, what's up?" she answered. "Em, I need your help." Michael's voice was tight with stress. "Mom fell on the stairs. She's at Queen's General. Nothing life-threatening, but she broke her ankle pretty badly." "I'll be right there," Emma said, adrenaline surging. She hurried back to James and Oliver. "I'm so sorry, but I have to go. Family emergency. My mother's in the hospital." James's concern was immediate. "Is she all right? Can we help? I can have my driver take you." "No, thank you. She'll be fine, just a broken ankle, but I should be there." Emma was already gathering her things. "I had a wonderful time today, truly." "Let me at least call you a car," James began. "The subway will be faster at this hour," Emma insisted. "Thank you for today. I'll text about next weekend." She gave Oliver a quick hug and squeezed James's hand before hurrying away, leaving both Blackwood men watching her departure with matching expressions of concern. At Queen's General, Emma found her mother in good spirits despite the pain, with Michael already handling the paperwork. 3 hours later, after ensuring her mother was settled at home with pain medication and a temporary care plan, Emma finally checked her phone. 3 missed calls from James and a text message. "I hope your mother is recovering well. Please let me know if you need anything at all. Medical specialists, equipment, anything. I meant what I said about helping." JB Emma was typing a reply when her phone buzzed with a news alert. Her heart sank as she read the headline, "Tech billionaire James Blackwood's new flame. Mystery woman spotted getting cozy with widower and son at Bryant Park Art Show." The article featured a blurry photo of Emma helping Oliver with the pottery wheel, James looking at them with undisguised affection. The caption read, "Is the famously reclusive widower finally moving on?" Sources say Blackwood appeared smitten with the unknown brunette. "Oh no," Emma whispered, scrolling through the comments already speculating about her identity and motives. Her phone buzzed again with a message from James. "Emma, I just saw the article. I'm so sorry. This is exactly what I didn't want to happen. Can we talk when you're free?" Emma stared at her phone, suddenly aware of the complexity of James Blackwood's world, and whether she had any place in it. Emma hadn't slept. Between caring for her mother, covering extra shifts at the diner to help with medical bills, and dodging questions from customers who'd somehow seen the tabloid photos, exhaustion had become her constant companion. "Order up," Sal the cook called out. "And Emma, Table 7 is asking if you're really dating that tech guy." Emma groaned as she loaded plates onto her tray. "Tell them to leave a bigger tip if they want gossip." 5 days had passed since the art festival, 5 days of increasingly concerned texts from James that she'd answered with brief, non-committal responses. She hadn't explicitly canceled their Hamptons plans, but she hadn't confirmed either. The truth was, Emma was terrified. Not of James, the man who cooked dinner, while wearing a silly apron and looked at his son like he hung the moon, but of his world. A world where casual Sunday outings made news headlines and strangers felt entitled to photograph your every move. During her break, Emma sat in the alley behind the diner scrolling through her phone. The original tabloid story had spawned dozens more, each wildly speculating about her identity. One claimed she was a European socialite, another suggested she was a former model. The closest anyone had come to the truth was a small blog that identified her as possibly a service worker from Queens. Her phone buzzed with yet another text from James. "I understand if you need space. Just please let me know if you're still coming tomorrow. Oliver asks about you constantly. So do I." Emma sighed, finally hitting the call button instead of texting back. James answered on the first ring. "Emma? Are you okay?" "I'm fine," she said, suddenly nervous. "Just on my break. How's Oliver?" "Missing you," James replied honestly. "He finished that pottery bowl. It's spectacularly lopsided." Emma laughed despite herself. "A true masterpiece, I'm sure." A moment of silence stretched between them, before James spoke again, his voice softer. "I know this past week has been difficult. The media attention was exactly what I was trying to avoid by keeping a low profile these past few years." "It's not just that," Emma admitted. "It's everything. My mom needs help around the house. I've picked up extra shifts to cover her medical bills, and I have finals coming up. I don't know if I can add dating a famous billionaire to my plate right now." "I understand," James said, disappointment evident in his voice. "But I'd still like to help with your mother if you'll let me." "I can't accept your money, James." "It's not about money," he insisted. "I have contacts, the best orthopedic specialists, physical therapists. At least let me make some calls." Emma pinched the bridge of her nose. "That's still you using your resources to fix my problems." "What's wrong with that? People help each other, Emma. That's what—" He hesitated. "Friends do." The word friends hung awkwardly between them, clearly not what either wanted to say. "I need to get back to work," Emma said finally. "About tomorrow. Don't worry about it. We can reschedule when things settle down." After ending the call, Emma leaned against the brick wall, conflicted. The back door swung open and Zoe poked her head out. "There you are. Your shift ended 10 minutes ago. I clocked you out." "What? Why?" Zoe grinned mischievously. "Because your chariot awaits, Cinderella." Emma followed her roommate to the front of the diner where a tall, elegantly dressed black woman stood beside a sleek Mercedes. "Ms. Porter? I'm Vivian Taylor, James Blackwood's chief of staff." She extended a perfectly manicured hand. "Mr. Blackwood asked me to assist with your mother's situation." "He sent you? I just spoke to him 10 minutes ago." Vivian smiled knowingly. "Mr. Blackwood called me before he called you. He said you'd likely refuse financial assistance but might accept professional guidance." She handed Emma a business card. I've arranged a consultation with Dr. Harrison Phillips tomorrow morning, the best orthopedic surgeon in New York. Your mother's case has already been reviewed, and her insurance concerns have been addressed. I don't understand, Emma said, bewildered. Mr. Blackwood didn't pay for anything, Vivian explained patiently. He simply made some calls to colleagues who owed him favors. Dr. Phillips is an old friend who's happy to consult as a professional. Courtesy. Emma absorbed this information, feeling both grateful and chagrined at her earlier defensiveness. There's more, Vivian continued. After reviewing your mother's case, we've arranged for a home health aide for the next 2 weeks, covered by your mother's existing insurance. We just needed to file the proper paperwork, which I've handled. Why would James do all this when I've been avoiding him all week? Vivian's professional demeanor softened slightly. In the 3 years I've worked for Mr. Blackwood, I've never seen him pursue anything outside of Oliver's well-being and his company's interests, until now. She gestured to the car. May I give you a ride home? No strings attached. During the ride to Queens, Vivian tactfully answered Emma's questions about what working for James was really like. The picture she painted was of a demanding but fair boss who prioritized his employees' work-life balance and never missed Oliver's school events, regardless of business commitments. The tabloids paint him as either a ruthless titan or a reclusive widower, Vivian remarked. The truth is, he's just a man doing his best in extraordinary circumstances. When they reached Emma's apartment building, Vivian handed her an envelope. From Oliver, she explained. He insisted I deliver it personally. Inside was a child's drawing of 3 figures, a tall man, a boy in a wheelchair, and a woman with a smiling face, standing on what appeared to be a beach. Across the top, in careful handwriting, Our weekend at the beach. Hope you can come. Love, Oliver. Emma's eyes stung with tears. Ms. Porter, Vivian said before departing, in my experience, the hardest choices often have the simplest answers. What do you want? That question haunted Emma through the night and into the following morning as she accompanied her mother to Dr. Phillips's office. The consultation went remarkably well, with the doctor recommending a minimally invasive procedure that would significantly reduce recovery time. You're very fortunate, Dr. Phillips commented. James rarely calls in personal favors. Your daughter must be quite special. Emma's mother raised an eyebrow but mercifully saved her questions for the cab ride home. So, Rose Porter began, adjusting her casted ankle on the seat, are you going to tell me about this man who's sending top surgeons and home health aides our way? Emma sighed. It's complicated, Mom. It always is with the good ones, Rose replied sagely. This is the billionaire from the news, isn't it? The one with the little boy? Emma's shocked expression made her mother laugh. I may be old, but I'm not blind. Those photos were blurry, but I'd recognize my daughter anywhere. Rose patted Emma's hand. He seems to care about you. He does, Emma admitted. And his son is wonderful, but their world is so different from ours. Different isn't always bad, sweetheart. Sometimes it's just different. When they arrived home, Emma was surprised to find the home health aide had already arrived and organized the apartment for optimal accessibility. What would have taken Emma days to arrange had been handled with quiet efficiency, thanks to James's intervention. As her mother settled in with the aide, Emma made a decision. She pulled out her phone and texted James. Is that Hampton's invitation? Still open? His response came seconds later. Always. Car will be ready whenever you are. Just say the word. Emma smiled, finally typing. The word is yes. I'll pack a bag. Within the hour, a town car arrived to take her to Manhattan, where James and Oliver waited outside their building. Oliver's face lit up when he spotted her, and he wheeled forward eagerly. You came. Did you get my drawing? Do you like the beach? I packed extra sunscreen because Dad says you have to be careful even when it's not super sunny and… Breathe, Oliver. James laughed, stepping forward to take Emma's overnight bag. James met her eyes, his expression a mixture of relief and joy. Thank you for coming, he said softly. Thank you for helping my mom, Emma replied. You found a way to help without making me feel like a charity case. I pay Vivian very well to solve impossible problems, James said with a smile. And making stubborn, independent women accept help definitely qualifies. As they loaded into the waiting SUV, Oliver chatting excitedly between them, Emma realized that perhaps their different worlds weren't insurmountable obstacles, but rather complementary pieces of something greater, something worth fighting for. The Hamptons' house turned out to be a stunning beachfront property, modern yet welcoming with vast windows that brought the ocean horizon indoors. As promised, it was equipped with ramps and pathways that allowed Oliver to navigate independently in his wheelchair. Standing on the deck overlooking the private beach as the sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, Emma felt James step beside her. "Penny, for your thoughts?" he asked quietly. "I'm thinking that I've been afraid of the wrong things," Emma admitted. "I was so worried about the differences in our lives that I almost missed seeing the similarities in what matters." James turned to face her fully. "And what matters to you, Emma Porter?" "Family, kindness, seeing people for who they are, not what they appear to be." She met his gaze steadily. "What matters to you, James Blackwood?" "Right now?" He stepped closer, his hand tentatively finding hers. "You do." As their fingers intertwined against the backdrop of crashing waves, Emma knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they were worth facing, together.